The floor adjusted itself under his boots with a polite shiver, as if apologizing for not being human enough to stay still. He told himself this was normal alien technology behavior and not the universe preparing to swallow him. Around him, the air carried soft pulses of translated meaning, half-formed thoughts brushing his mind and retreating again, like shy insects. Someone had warned him not to think too loudly in a royal chamber. Unfortunately, thinking quietly had never been his strongest skill. When the silence deepened, he realized that meant she had arrived. The presence was unmistakable, not loud, not threatening, just heavy in a way that made gravity feel self-conscious. He lifted his eyes because protocol said not to, and lowered them because protocol also said not to, then decided protocol was having an argument with itself and chose the middle distance. She spoke, and the chamber translated her voice directly into him, warm and precise, every syllable weighed. He listened carefully, nodding at the appropriate intervals, though he had no idea what the appropriate intervals were. His internal translator helpfully labeled his current emotional state as statistical disaster. Something about the stillness unnerved him. Humans, when quiet, were usually planning something stupid. Aliens, he suspected, were doing something much worse. So when the pause stretched just a fraction too long, he did what humans often did in sacred moments. He talked. That was impressive, he said, gesturing vaguely in a way that could have meant the ceremony, the technology, or the fact that no one had vaporized him yet. I mean, you are impressive, very balanced. Like gravity figured you out and gave up. The chamber reacted instantly. Systems hummed sharper. Advisors stiffened. An artificial intelligence somewhere began recalculating the odds of his survival and quietly downgraded them. He felt a pleasant cooling sensation around his spine, which he hoped was not a targeting system. Then she moved closer. Not fast, not threatening, just closer than rules would ever allow. The long ears that framed her face shifted forward slightly, betraying an interest the rest of her posture refused to acknowledge. Her voice lowered, the translation smoothing something curious into it. Repeat that. He swallowed. Humor surfaced, uninvited but determined. The part where I die, or the part where gravity surrenders? A flicker passed through her expression, amusement he realized sharp and quick. The first was unclear, the second was unusual. He tried again, slower, choosing sincerity because lying felt like more work. You don't feel like someone pretending to be powerful. You feel like power got tired and decided to sit down. The silence that followed was different. Not shocked, thinking. Her ears angled, a subtle motion the translator refused to label. Your species insults royalty with alarming creativity. Usually by accident, he said. On purpose we mostly trip. Something shifted in the room, not physically, but structurally, like a rule bending and discovering it could. The queen studied him as if he were a curious equation that refused to balance. For the first time since entering the chamber, he felt the tension ease, not disappear, just loosen enough to breathe. Interesting, she said at last. He smiled despite himself. People keep saying that. I think it's a warning. Her attention did not withdraw. It lingered, and somewhere between the hum of alien machines and the echo of his own reckless honesty, he realized he had not been reprimanded. He had been invited. The court did not dismiss him, which felt suspicious. Instead, time stretched, thinned, and rearranged itself around the queen's attention. Advisors exchanged glances that carried entire arguments compressed into eye movements. The translation field hesitated, as if unsure whether to record what followed as history or as a very elaborate misunderstanding. Walk with me, she said. He blinked. I'm allowed to move. A pause, one ear angled sideways. You are allowed not to flee. Good, he muttered, stepping forward. That was my second plan. The floor anticipated his steps, adjusting before his feet landed, which made him feel both honored and mildly seasick. As they moved, the chamber reconfigured itself, walls sliding apart with ceremonial reluctance. He resisted the urge to wave at the architecture. It felt rude to greet something that could probably read his blood pressure. "You speak without calibration," the Queen said. "Is that common among humans?" "We call it authenticity," he replied. "Or exhaustion, depends on the day." She considered this. The court systems hummed uneasily, their predictive models clearly upset. He imagined an algorithm somewhere screaming that this was not how royal interactions were supposed to unfold. "You were not afraid," she said. "I was," he answered immediately. "I just panic conversationally, it's very efficient." That earned him another flicker of amusement. Her pace slowed. He noticed, too late, that he was now close enough for protocol to have a nervous breakdown. His translator gently suggested he retreat 3 steps. He ignored it out of spite. "You complimented me," she continued. "Not my throne, not my lineage, me." He shrugged. "Thrones don't usually respond well." One of the advisors made a strangled sound. The Queen lifted a hand, and the sound reconsidered its existence. "Humans," she said thoughtfully, "are difficult to predict. We outsource most planning to optimism," he said. "It rarely works, but it keeps morale high." They stopped. The air tightened, not threatening, just attentive. He felt the faint brush of scanning fields assessing everything from his neural patterns to his questionable posture. Somewhere a machine learned that sarcasm was not a disease. "Your words disrupted ceremony," she said. "Sorry." "They also disrupted me." He looked at her then properly this time, not as a queen, as a person whose attention had weight. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. Trouble is not always unwelcome." Her ears shifted again, slower now, deliberate. The translation hesitated, then delivered something almost playful. "Say it again." He exhaled. "The gravity thing." "Yes." "Well," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "you don't lean on power, you let it lean on you. That's rare." Silence followed, but it felt different than before. Softer, curious. The court systems adjusted, recording a deviation they could not yet name. "Interesting," she said again, but this time it carried warmth. "You may remain." He smiled helplessly. "That's the nicest threat I've ever received." She turned, beginning to walk once more, and he followed, realizing too late that this was no longer a moment. It was a beginning. By the time the chamber acknowledged that something irreversible had happened, it was already too late to stop it. The court systems attempted to restore order by dimming the ambient fields and reasserting ceremonial cadence, but the Queen ignored the cues with practiced elegance. She faced him fully now, no advisors between them, no protocol thick enough to hide behind. "You have altered the probability lattice," she said. He winced. "That sounds expensive." "It is," she replied, and one corner of her mouth lifted, "but not unpleasant." The advisors finally spoke, all at once, their voices braided into a single urgent warning by the translation field. He caught fragments. Precedent, stability, risk, human error rate. He raised a hand reflexively. "I can leave," he said quickly. "I'm very good at leaving situations I don't understand." The Queen did not look away from him. "You will not." The court fell silent again, this time with a sense of reluctant acceptance. Systems recalculated. Somewhere deep beneath the floor, an ancient machine rewrote its own assumptions. "You were brought here to observe," she said, "to measure us, to report." "Technically," he admitted. "Mostly I was told not to touch anything and definitely not to talk." "And yet," she said, "you spoke truth without armor." He thought of all the times he had hidden behind humor, behind fear, behind the safety of being unimportant. "I didn't know how else to be." "That," she said softly, "is precisely why you are still standing." She turned to the court. "This human will remain as my guest, not as a symbol, not as a curiosity, as a voice." The advisors protested, but the Queen raised her hand again and the protest dissolved into data. The machines complied. Tradition bent, then settled into a new shape. He felt lighter, strangely. The fear had not vanished, but it no longer owned him. "So," he said, unable to stop himself, "does this mean I should start practicing royal etiquette, or is honest panic still acceptable? A ripple passed through the court. Laughter alien, unfamiliar but unmistakable. The queen's ears angled forward, pleased. Honest panic, she said, will suffice. They walked together then, not as ruler and subject, but as two beings navigating the aftermath of a shared disruption. He realized that he was no longer trying to fill silence. He was listening, choosing words, standing without shrinking. At the threshold of the chamber, she paused. "You will change how they see us," she said, "and how you see yourself." He considered that. "I already have," he said. She inclined her head, a gesture that would be discussed for generations. As he followed her into whatever came next, he understood that the compliment had never been the point.